You're listening to MedX, the Medical Extrusion Podcast. Presented by U.S. Extruders. Extrude with confidence. Custom extrusion equipment designed for you and your application.
Welcome to the final episode of the first season of the MedX Podcast. We're very happy to have Joe Rowan, former CEO and president of Junkosha USA in Europe, returning to the podcast for the final episode of the season. Welcome back, Joe.
Thanks, Steve. Great to be here.
Great. Joe, before we get started, I think it'd be good for you to give our listeners a background or an update on the leadership changes that Junkosha that involved you.
Yeah, so, essentially, I had been president CEO of Junkosha USA ever since we brought the business to the US and Europe. Essentially put a team organization together from really a standing start to a business that's tens of millions of dollars. And, there comes a time when, you got to look at the big picture personally as well as professionally. And, it's the third time, I guess, I've built a business from scratch. And so, the time was right for me to kind of step back. And this was all planned. My successor, Mike Winterling, is a guy that I worked with when we were both at Gore. I've known Mike 25 years. He's worked in teams that I've had in Gore, in electronics, industrial, medical. And so, Mike has just slotted right in, and we haven't missed a beat. And so Mike is the guy that's leading the charge now for Junkosha as part of our, internationalization program, and the business just continues to grow. So, it's great to have Mike take over, and I'm enjoying stepping back. I'm there as an advisor, but I'm not getting involved in the operational side. Couple little fun projects I've got, but essentially, Steve, I'm just there as an advisor going forward, and win-win situation. I'm enjoying getting some well-earned rest. So a few miles on the clock, and I'm ready to kind of slow down a little bit. I think I looked with American Airlines. I think I'm about 1.8 million miles or something like that. So yeah, it's good just to slow right down and get a really good balance, and I'm thoroughly enjoying it.
Excellent. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Joe, in September, when we first had you on the podcast to talk about the availability of FEP heat shrink tubing and PTFE liners, we know a lot has changed since that time, hopefully for the better. But we'll give you an opportunity to give the listeners an update on the availability of the liners and heat shrink tubing.
Yeah, I mean, I think as we said at the time, Steve, it really was a kind of tornado that everybody found themselves in the supply chain. Fortunately, we made the strategic decision to invest ahead of the curve, invest in capacity, invest in people, invest in improving throughput and some of these things. And I'm really happy to report that our lead times are really starting to get back to normal. We are, if you need standard like peelable heat shrink parts, we can turn those around in a couple of weeks. Special 4 to 6 weeks, and production for both the liners that are 3 millimeters and less, and production for the peelable heat shrink that are like 4 millimeters and less, 10 to 14 weeks. So we've really got the whole thing starting to, come back to where it should be. In every situation I've been in, Steve, it swings and roundabouts. You get to a situation where you're supply constrained, and then you become demand constrained, and then that kind of, that constraint goes back and forward over time. So happy that there's been that correction, happy that we made the conscious decision to invest ahead of the curve, and now we're paying the benefits. And in an actual fact, not only do we have those kind of lead times really getting back to where they should be, But concurrent with the investment in capacity, we invested in technology. So now we're going to be able to produce liners up to 12 millimeters ID and peelable heat shrink up to 13 meters in expanded ID. So, given that our initial focus was like neurovascular, peripheral, smaller size, customers have really pulled us through to say, look, we like your product, we like the service, we like the quality. Why, can't you start to help us out in areas like, TAVR, abdominal and thoracic, and some of these larger vessels? And so now we're actually in the phase of starting to take sample orders for these larger sizes. And, we've got the investment coming right there, and we'll be able to produce in volume in the weeks and months ahead. So, yeah, things are falling into place. And, I'm just happy, Steve, that we got through it. And we managed to not only retain our existing customers, we got a lot of new customers. And I think the way that we dealt with customers in a very forthright, honest way, under promising, over delivering, I think we came out of that with our integrity intact and with a lot of new customers and getting more business from existing customers. So, I couldn't be prouder of the team, and Mike and the operations guys in Japan have done a fantastic job. And so I think we're poised now for another upward trajectory in our growth, while really starting to get into new programs with these much tighter lead times. So something good to report, as opposed to September when it kind of seemed like there was never going to be an end in sight, as I'm sure you agree, Steve.
Yeah, it was pretty rough. I think the folks that are building composite catheter shafts are going to be very happy with those delivery times compared to what they're used to over the last couple of years.
Yep.
And that's interesting that you mentioned you kind of started in the neurovascular, smaller space, and have expanded to the larger sizes on the liners and the heat shrink to support, for instance, structural heart applications.
Exactly.
Great.
Yeah, and again, it's really all part of a very deliberate strategy of growing from the core, and looking at adjacencies, and a clear adjacency is larger size, which unlocks some pretty, attractive markets for us.
Excellent. Let's talk a little bit more about PTFE. And I noticed there was a LinkedIn post that talked about some of your liners and the advantage of your PTFE liners as compared to the dipping or the film cast type PTFE liner.
Yeah.
You know that the film cast PTFE liners traditionally for very ultra thin wall thicknesses at the expense of mechanical properties and more prone to skiving compared to the traditional or extruded PTFE liners. Can you expand a little bit on that, the benefits or the differences?
Yeah, and our forte has always been in the area of extrusion and manipulation of PTFE, and and fluoropolymers in general. And we decided when we got into the liner business that there was really an unmet need for liners, extruded liners, that were very predictable in their mechanical considerations like elongation, tensile strength, yield point, some of these things. So we spent a bit of time bringing these liners to market. And the advantage that extruded liners have over die cast is, as you alluded to, you're not going to get any strength to the actual catheter from the die cast or film cast product. In many cases, a lot of the strength of the catheter is delivered by the liner itself. And so, that's the area that we've really focused on. And, we've started to grow in that area. And, one of the other issues with die cast, and look, I'm not here to to talk badly about other technologies, but anything has got a limitation. Every engineering approach has got a limitation. They can take their thickness down to, 3 or 4 tenths in some cases. we're able to get down, depending on the ID, down to maybe 7/10. Most liners we supply are in the 1 thou range. But the advantage of having a thin liner is that, it helps in terms of flexibility. And that is obviously a very big deal. And real estate, real estate is a big deal in catheters as well. But the price to pay is the mechanicals and I guess the robustness, because, when they're that thin, they tend to get nicked and scratched and scraped. And, they are quite literally a kind of thin coating on the mandrel, and pluses, minuses. And so, we've looked at what we can do. The first step was with the extruded liner, and as you well know, we've got some other things in the works in terms of liners.
Okay, excellent. Appreciate that overview of the different types, film cast versus extruded. Talk to us a little bit about this technology platform that you have for wrapped PTFE liners.
Sure, and this, Steve, is a very exciting technology. The idea of the wrapped PTFE liner. This is something that, at least to my knowledge, that we are the only people that are doing it. And even so, this is an area that we're not ready to release right now. The initial results from some of our customers' beta sites before we release this is incredible, because we've actually been able to get the kind of holy grail, if you like, of thin, but also incredibly high strength. In fact, stronger than extruded, which is completely counterintuitive. And so, like any new technology that's a discontinuous innovation, it takes time, it takes effort to get it right. And, Junkosha's commitment to quality, we're going to do it properly rather than quickly. And so we're continuing working with our beta sites, but this is something that I'd hope to give you an update on, or maybe even have Mike come on and give you an update on sure, in the time ahead. Because, if we can get this delivered and to fulfill the promises that it has, it could be a real game changer. So, right now, we're not working with any additional people. We've got a core of customers that we're working through, just startup issues or initial issues that you get. And again, we are in no hurry to bring something to market that doesn't what we say it does, because fitness for use is everything for us. So yeah, watch this space, I guess, is the message there. And hopefully we'll have some exciting news for you in the months ahead.
Okay. Yeah, we'll definitely take advantage of that and your offer to get Mike on the podcast at some point to talk about that further once you're a little bit further ahead. But that's very exciting. Thanks so much. Yeah. Let's move on to something very cool that I want to talk about, or ask you to talk about, and that's your Junkosha's annual Technology Innovation of the Year Award. And I was very thankful that you've invited me to participate in that. Can you give our listeners an overview of the award, explain it, and how people can get involved, some of the due dates and things? And we'll put some information, links up on the podcast as well to help get more people involved. But please tell us a little bit about it.
Sure. I mean, so look, our brand. Our brand logo is really around enabling technology innovators. The reality is that technology innovation in medical, technology innovation anywhere is not easy. I talked about building 3 businesses from scratch. It's not easy. And medical is even more difficult, because you've got to throw in the regulatory issues on top of the normal challenges of innovation. And, if we trace our roots back, Junkosha, our founder started the business in like a garage. And, it was really through tenacity and endurance and, doing the right thing right, that helped him to get to where we are now. But I think also the injection of some cash at that point in the cycle is really important. And so, what we're doing here for anyone that has, ideas that have been reduced to practice, where you're not having, where there's no IP conflict, get with us. We've got a $25,000 first prize. We're not making it difficult for people to enter. We'll supply you the link, etc., Steve. But what we ask you to do is go into the Junkosha website, fill in, a couple of very simple paragraphs just to give us an indication of what is unique or what is differentiated or what is good, about your innovation for, mankind, if you like. Because one of the big things that Junkosha have done and our founder, and it's inbuilt to our brand, is really, if you take the name Junkosha, it means trying to improve, mankind through technology. And so this whole innovation award is really us putting our kind of money where our mouth is and try to, help enable people to grow their business. In fact, last year's winner, Chris Hancock, who did some really good work in some endoscopic RF devices. Here was a guy who kind of slept on his couch while he was investing his money in starting his business. And so, we're not just looking at large corporate organizations. We're looking at R&D labs. We're looking at universities. So anything you can do, Steve, to help us, get into these kind of nooks and crannies where there might be people who would really benefit from this, the cash as well as the exposure, because as we're trying to really get the message out there. And for companies or for individuals who are, really looking to try to get their name out there, at the very worst, if you don't get the cash, if you get into the finals, you'll get some exposure. And, you're going to get to speak to people on that panel like yourself, like myself, who are experienced. And my hope is, and last year, if it's anything to go by, we're really able to help these people in their business and their technology and really give them a helping hand, if nothing else, with a bit of free consultancy from some experienced, industry experts.
That's great. What a great program for entrepreneurs and people that have innovative ideas that they want to bring to the market. That's excellent. We'll be glad to help to promote this. And like I said, get the website link out and do everything we can to help try to get more people involved.
Really appreciate that, Steve.
Yeah, sure. Joe, it's been great to have you back on the podcast. And again, congratulations on your retirement. Like you said, I'm sure we'll still be in contact, though.
Oh, yeah.
We'll see each other as well. Okay.
Good stuff.
Have a great summer.
Thanks, Steve. You too. Appreciate it.
All right.
Thank you for listening to MedX, the Medical Extrusion Podcast, presented by US Extruders. Please subscribe to make sure you're getting the latest episodes. All links are available in the show notes.